Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A winter storm is moving into the region. The National Weather Service has issued a high wind warning for the mountains and deserts through tomorrow evening, where they're predicting gusts of up to 75 miles an hour in some areas. San Diego County is expected to get up to an inch of rain in the coastal regions, even more in the mountains. KPBS science reporter David Wagner wondered how much rain and snow California has been getting so far this wet season. He brings us this update from the newly relaunched KPBS Drought Tracker.
Since the wet season began in October, California has seen a bit more rain than in many previous drought years. As of Thursday morning, average rainfall throughout the state has added up to 45% of what normally falls by April 1st. That's a date that is typically used to mark the end of the wet season. But the Sierra snowpack has stayed pretty thin. On average, it's only 14% of the way toward a normal April 1st measurement. These numbers come from data compiled by a team at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Scripps climate researcher David Pierce says you can blame the lack of snow on high temperatures.
Because of temperature, the precipitation we've had, which has been even a bit above normal, hasn't been driving much increase in snowpack. We care about that in California because we depend on the snowpack as a natural reservoir of our winter water.
According to the U.S. Drought Monitor, nearly 3/4 of California is still in drought. As the state grapples with its 6th year of drought, we'll be periodically updating the KPBS Drought Tracker. Come April 1st, we'll know if statewide rain and snow levels have exceeded 100% of normal, which would help put a dent in the drought. David Wagner, KPBS News.
To see today's numbers and compare them with previous years, go to kpbs.org/drought tracker. While we wait for rain, snowstorms are hitting much of the Pacific Northwest and dangerously cold temperatures are spreading across the northern U.S. Associated Press reporter Sandy Kozel shows us how people are digging out.
Cleveland is just one of the cities on the Great Lakes getting hit by wintry weather. Early morning snowfall made it tough for drivers in northern Ohio to see on Thursday. And things are bound to get even more difficult with extreme cold on the way. Wind chill advisories are already stretching from North Dakota and Minnesota all the way to Ohio and Pennsylvania. Wind chills are dropping well below zero in the upper Midwest. Western and upstate New York are already dealing with heavy lake effect snow ahead of the cold snap. Snowfall could reach 1 to 2 feet in some places. A snowstorm hit Portland, Oregon on Wednesday, leaving commuters who tried to drive home early stuck on roads for hours. Some school buses were also stuck, with kids still inside. Other children had to wait out the storm at school.
I know that one bus was stuck on the Fremont Bridge for several hours, and so an alternate bus has been called, and that's what's on its way now.
The bitter cold is expected to affect the northern half of the country, with the deep freeze lasting until Monday. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
Stephanie Omo will have more on San Diego's stormy weather a little later in this newscast. California Congressman Duncan Hunter is now under investigation by the House Ethics Committee. Last spring, a watchdog group filed a complaint for alleged ethics violations. The group says Hunter improperly used campaign funds to pay for personal expenses like trips to Hawaii and Italy and tuition for his children. A spokesperson for Hunter says he's already reimbursed the campaign committee for those expenses, and changes have been made to make sure it doesn't happen again. Ever since the presidential race revealed a deep division within America, incidents of hate and intolerance have made headlines across the country, including here in San Diego. In a sign of unity, some San Diego business owners are encouraging their fellow proprietors to create a welcoming environment. KPBS City Heights reporter Taryn Minto has the story.
We're here passing out these flyers. It's a campaign that we're doing, basically saying that anyone and everyone is welcome in your business.
100%, yeah.
Super Cocina restaurant operator Juan Pablo Sanchez walks storefront to storefront.
Hello there.
With posters for his fellow business owners to display in their windows.
You want to help me hang it up?
Yeah.
The signs say hate has no biz here and are part of a campaign to promote acceptance amid a divisive time.
The news is focused on some of the backlash, the the little bit of racist things that have happened and stuff like that. So it's definitely, in a community as diverse as City Heights, it hits home. And people are afraid that might creep here,
The Mexican eatery is a fixture in the community, which boasts a large Hispanic population and is home to immigrants and refugees from many countries. Thank you. The campaign comes from the pro-small business nonprofit Main Street Alliance of San Diego.
What do we want to start leading in San Diego?
Director Kareem Bouri says the All Are Welcome Here movement launched in other cities about a year ago, and again in response to the mass shooting at a gay Orlando nightclub.
In response to some of the rhetoric we were hearing by then candidate Trump around Mexican immigrants, around Muslims, refugees, and then we updated it in light of some of the rhetoric and the talk that came after the Pulse Club shooting in Orlando.
Sanchez was one of 3 business owners that joined the campaign. Restaurants in Mission Hills and on Adams Avenue also participated in the celebration of diversity. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
New regulations for recreational marijuana sales in San Diego took a step forward today. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the rules are familiar. Andrew?
Ebony, the recreational pot shops would have the same land use restrictions as medical marijuana dispensaries. That means they can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, park, church, or other dispensary. The city's planning commission today signed off on the rules for the most part, but disagreed with the proposal to ban businesses that grow and process marijuana and test it for safety and potency.
A lot of people aren't that familiar with marijuana, and they use it for medical purposes, and they need to know that it doesn't have pesticides, herbicides, mold, fertilizers, dirt, and all the other kind of contaminants that have led to the problems you hear about.
Both California and San Diego voted overwhelmingly in favor of Prop 64, which legalized marijuana. The law requires all retail marijuana and its byproducts to be grown and tested by facilities licensed by the state. Kimberly Sims is an industry lawyer. She says San Diego shouldn't miss out on that business, and she was encouraged by the Planning Commission's vote.
Today filled me with a lot of optimism, certainly more optimism than I have felt in a long time. As it pertains to San Diego's regulations of the cannabis industry, I think we're turning a corner here. I really do.
The rules will soon go before the City Council, which has the final say on whether to adopt or change them. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Thank you, Andrew. A judge has decided San Diego will be allowed to close the La Jolla Children's Pool during seal pupping season while a lawsuit moves through the courts. The 4th District Court of Appeals ruled today the city can enforce the closure for now. Since 2014, the city has closed the beach from December 15th to May 15th. In May, a judge in Orange County ruled the ban was illegal. Wildlife experts have come up with a last-ditch effort to try to save the world's smallest porpoise. Before it becomes extinct, there are only about 50 vaquitas left in the Gulf of Mexico. The committee is trying to save them now and plans to capture the animals to keep them in a protected bay so they can breed without risk from fishing nets. A capture and breeding program helped restore the California condor population, but the vaquita has never been held in captivity, so it's uncertain whether the effort will work. Thousands of people have died crossing from Mexico into the U.S. since the large stretches of border fence were built in the 90s. A group of volunteers in San Diego is trying to bring closure to the families of the dead, searching for their bodies at the border. In part 3 of this series, KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero goes with the volunteers, and they run into some trouble.
Jose Hennis notes the GPS coordinates of another human skull we've found in the Arizona desert. He's part of Águilas del Desierto, or Eagles of the Desert. They search for migrants who go missing at the border. Sometimes the volunteers save people. Often, they're just locating the remains to help families move on.
The family's desperate to find answers, and this organization actually helps bring closure to some.
The volunteers send the location of their latest discovery to local officials, who will transport the remains for DNA analyses. The volunteers hike out of the desert. I'm documenting their work on my iPhone.
I hope that someday, we can actually stop what we're doing, but I don't see an end to this.
Border crossing deaths have skyrocketed since long stretches of border fence were built in the 1990s, rerouting migrant traffic into the dangerous desert.
We're gonna build a wall!
President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to expand that fencing.
We're gonna build a wall!
Already, migrants are rushing to cross the border before Trump's term begins. Some are dying on the way. Signs of migrants are everywhere on this border crossing route. Discarded Red Bulls, abandoned backpacks, toys, even shredded female underwear. It's creepy. As we search, an unfamiliar male voice comes on the radio. It asks us to identify ourselves.
We're all regrouping. We're walking together because apparently, hold on. Can you tell me what's happening, Jose?
So we're walking, and we usually carry walkie-talkies, and we're in channel 2, and apparently somebody else came into our channel.
The voice said it could see us in our yellow shirts. It demanded to know if we were Border Patrol. Henny says we're being watched by a smuggler. He says the risks for the group have increased as a longer fence has pushed migrants onto the same routes as drug traffickers. We quicken our pace. When things go south like this, founder Eli Ortiz gets worried. He's trying to guide us back to the cars. As we hurry out, we come across a phone. The Aguilas decide to keep it in case it contains clues about a missing person.
Take that case with you, too.
Finally, reunited with the cars, we drive out of the desert. In a nearby town, an Indian woman uses a traditional ceremony to cleanse all of us with sage smoke. She says the spirit of the dead is clinging to our flesh and that she must remove it. Back home, the volunteers charge the phone we found on the ground and discover it belonged to a man named Martin Sarabia. The 7 most recent calls were to 911. I request recordings of Sarabia's calls from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. They sent me the recordings.
911, where's your emergency? Hello? I'm sorry, what?
Eventually, the dispatcher transferred the call to Borstar, a Border Patrol search and rescue unit created in 1998 in response to rising border crossing deaths. They failed to locate Sarabia. It seems uncanny that a banal-looking phone we found contains such a sad story. I think of all the other mysterious items we passed on our search. What secrets do they hold about other missing people? Back in the desert, Aguilas founder Ortiz tells me he feels a duty to search, despite the risk of running into drug traffickers.
What will happen the day we confront these people? What if they do something to us?
He says no one else is willing to take on that risk for anonymous migrants, especially as isolationist politics gain momentum in the country. But the Aguilas identify with the border crossers. The volunteers are bilingual. They come from families with mixed immigration statuses. Some were born in Mexico. Henny says that for the Aguilas, there's no them, just us.
You know, if they need help, we should just help. If they're willing to leave the country and risk their life to go through all this, you know, that it must be a tough life for them. So my life is pretty good right now. So, I mean, why not help out?
As long as people are dying at the border, he says, the volunteers will risk their lives to find them. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Tune in tomorrow for part 4 of this series, the real-life Don Quixote who forged a path. You can find all of Jean's stories in this series online at kpbs.org. Fronteras is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, making sense of how the predictive markets got the election forecast so wrong. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
Taking hundreds of guns off the streets. That's the goal of a San Diego gun exchange happening this weekend. The ministers who are putting it on tell me it's about saving lives.
We also want to stress that it's totally anonymous. It's totally anonymous. Bring your guns.
It's a call to action.
We're not searching for anyone. We want the guns turned in. We're not trying to violate anyone's Second Amendment rights. These are guns that you have laying around the home where we can make our community safer.
San Diego's United African American Ministerial Action Council stands with San Diego police and other community members, asking people to turn in their guns to keep them from getting into the wrong hands.
Imagine, if you will, a child, as in many cases, have got a hold of a weapon, and that weapon has been pointed either at that child or at someone else. We don't want to ever see that happen again here in San Diego.
So it'd be a great opportunity
for a family who wants to make their home a little safer, that has no need for the gun, no experience with the gun, and doesn't have the proper locking devices and safes, to bring this gun to us, and we will definitely have great pride to be able to facilitate this transaction of peace.
It's the 7th annual gun exchange. People can turn in a gun and get a $100 to $200 gift card or a custom skateboard, signed by former pro skater Dennis Martinez.
You should witness on that day when a father pulls up or a grandparent pulls up and comes out with a young kid and sees those skateboards with a big smile on their face in exchange for a gun. I'm a Second Amendment person, but I also believe, like everybody else, let's make our neighborhoods safe.
This project started after 2 teens were killed. In 2008, Monique Palmer and Michael Taylor were shot walking home in Valencia Park. The church pastors say they wanted to do something to help those families, and taking action to keep other children from dying is what they hope to do.
The gun exchange is this Saturday at Encanto Southern Baptist Church from 7:30 until noon. To date, organizers have collected more than 740 guns. Promising news for children's health. A new study from the CDC shows risks for obesity rates are down in infants and toddlers in the WIC program. In 2010, nearly 15% of babies up to 2 years old were at risk for obesity. By 2014, that number had dropped to 12%. In California, the overall obesity rate for children in the WIC program is 16%. Health advocates with the Robert Wood Foundation say while the national childhood obesity rate has leveled off, there's still work to be done.
We need to address disparities among children of color and kids from low-income communities to ensure that all kids, no matter who they are or where they live, have a healthy start from their very first days.
Doctors say parents can help too by talking to child care providers to ensure healthy food choices are being offered and to reduce screen time and replace that by encouraging more physical playtime. Facebook is calling on its users to help prevent the spread of fake news. The online giant rolled out this plan today. Facebook partnered with outside fact trackers to sort honest news reports from made-up stories. After the presidential election, Facebook and other online sites were heavily criticized for their role in allowing the spread of false stories. Some critics argue such content may have influenced the election. California's Energy Commission wants computers to become a lot more energy efficient. It passed new rules that could save customers close to $400 million on their utility bills over the next decade. The rules mainly target desktop computers, which use 4 times as much power as laptop computers. Computer makers will have to reduce their power drawn by half within the next 5 years. Well, grab your umbrellas and coats because San Diego is getting more rain tomorrow. Stephanie Omo has more in tonight's forecast.
We have some wet weather that's impacting the Golden State. As we check out some of the headlines here, we do have that storm system that's moving through tonight and into the day on Friday. Now, what this is doing, it's providing us some rain and also some strong winds. So that's really going to be felt, especially in our area as we head into Friday. I'll have more details coming up in just a bit. And then a much cooler weekend after that storm passes. So as we check out the satellite and radar, we see pretty much the state of California under all this rain from northern areas where we see the heaviest amount down all the way down to LA, where we are picking up some showers, and even down across our way as well. So just a little closer look, not looking at anything too widespread at the moment, just a couple of showers in the area, looking at plenty of clouds from Alpine up into Borrego Springs and back into Oceanside as we continue into this evening. So we will see wet weather progress through the overnight hours, early hours tomorrow as well. Tonight, temperatures expected to tumble back into the upper 50s. Your forecast across the area here, Ramona, we are tumbling back into at about 54 degrees in Oceanside, 55, Borrego Springs at 57 with the chance to see some rain there, even down to Mount Laguna where temperatures will be a lot cooler down into the 40s. We're expected to see this area of low pressure slide across interior sections, depositing snow in the higher elevations and also rain throughout the Four Corners. We'll see rain taper off to just some rain showers showers on Friday. Once again, the bulk of the activity will start to spread its way out toward the east. So this weekend, if you are doing some traveling, the big story across our way will be that shot of cool air. It's going to get a lot cooler this weekend, so make sure to grab those jackets with you before heading out. As we begin to check out the 5-day outlook along the coast on Friday, once again, grab the wet gear. Temperatures will be in the 60s. We're talking rain, but that is going to taper off to a few showers in the area. Looking a lot quieter this weekend. You get that push of cooler air. Temperatures will be back down into the lower 60s on Saturday. Also much quieter this weekend further inland. We're expected temperatures to see temperatures fall back into the lower 60s and then eventually climb back up into the upper 60s to low 70s as we head into early next week. Now, this is where we're definitely going to feel the strong winds and also see some wet weather continue on Friday. This is your 5-day outlook for the mountain as we check out what's going on around the area for the weekend. It's expected to be a lot quieter, but also a lot cooler, especially for the first part of the weekend there. Also into the deserts, temperatures will be down into the lower 60s with sunny skies here both days, Saturday and Sunday. Stephanie Omo, KPBS News.
A solution to Northwest guitar makers' need for ethically and sustainably sourced hardwood may be growing in their own backyard. But can science help give them more beautiful maple wood? Pics reporter Ken Christensen has the story.
When Steve McMinn looks at trees, he tries to see their future.
It's difficult to predict. You're thinking, man, I could cut a 12 out of the butt here. This piece would slice nicely.
For decades, McMinn has supplied the guitar industry with trees grown from Alaska to Oregon. His customers include America's biggest guitar makers. At his shop in the foothills of the North Cascades, he cuts them, splits them, and listens to the results.
I figured somebody could do a better job providing wood for musical instruments than had been done. In the course of a year, we'll cut enough wood for 300,000 to 400,000 guitars.
Lately, McMinn has been looking further into the future, trying to help make the guitar industry more sustainable. Guitars use some of the rarest woods on Earth. They command a high price, making them targets for poachers in parts of the world already hit hard by deforestation.
It's increasingly difficult to legally, ethically source wood from the tropics. So guitar makers are increasingly interested in getting out of the tropics for their wood supplies.
One place is McMinn's backyard. The Pacific Northwest is home to the fast-growing big-leaf maple tree.
Maple is a clean, green, legal, local wood. We're interested in seeing whether we can provide them with a secure supply for the long term.
To find out, he partnered with Jim Matson.
They're nice trees.
Matson studies trees at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, British Columbia. Big-leaf maples like these are common in the region, but very few of them will develop the beautiful appearance that guitar players want.
When we think of wood, we mostly think of wood that looks something like this with a fairly straight grain, but it's also quite dull in its appearance, so many people like trees that have defects.
Defective or figured grain is popular for decorative items, but nobody has figured out how to grow maple trees to look like this.
You find it very rarely in nature, so what causes these defects?
Matson had a hunch. In other kinds of trees, the wavy grain is genetic. So Matson began taking samples of figured maple trees and cloning them in his lab. When the trees get big enough, Matson will bring them here and turn 50 acres of old farmland into a figured maple plantation. It could take 10 years before McMinn knows whether his experiments are working. He's willing to wait.
Left to my own, I would rather just have trees, period.
If McMinn doesn't see guitars in their future, at least he'll have trees to look at.
Look what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, more than 1,000 California doctors have signed a letter protesting President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run the Department of Health and Human Services. We'll explain why. And on Midday Edition, if you have no plans this weekend, maybe check out the musical La La Land. We'll be previewing it tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.